Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're getting into something maybe you don't think about too often, but it's huge, the air duct cleaning industry. It literally affects the air you breathe.
Yeah, it does. And we're diving in using this air duct cleaning industry guide you shared. Think of it as decoding what really happens inside your HVAC system's hidden pathways.
Right. And our mission today is to figure out what makes a professional service stand out. Because honestly, it seems like it should be simple, but it's way more than just, vacuuming a vent, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. We need to figure out how you can spot the difference between a pro and someone who might just, well, make things worse.
Because getting it right matters for your air, your energy costs, even your health. Get it wrong, and it's wasted money or maybe even damage.
Precisely. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's unpack this then. So
Yeah.
first off, why even clean air ducts? What's the point?
Well, basically, it's all about your indoor air quality. Over time, those ducts, they just collect stuff. Dust, obviously, but also pet dander, allergens, sometimes even mold spores can build up in there.
And that stuff doesn't just sit quietly, I guess.
Nope. Your system turns on, blows air, and circulates all those contaminants right back into your space. That can really aggravate allergies, uh, other respiratory issues, or just make the air feel, well, less fresh.
Okay.
Plus all that buildup, it actually restricts airflow, makes your HVAC system work harder than it needs to.
So it hits your energy bills too.
Exactly. Cleaner ducts mean cleaner air and a more efficient system, generally speaking.
Now, the guide mentioned a difference between, say, your house and a big office building.
Yeah, it does. For homes, the general recommendation is maybe every 3 to 5 years, depending.
Yeah.
But commercial buildings, they often have much bigger, more complicated systems.
Right.
And they might collect different things, think cooking grease in a restaurant duct or specific industrial particles in a factory. Plus, they often face stricter regulations, so they usually need cleaning more often.
Regulations. Okay, so this isn't just anyone can do it. The guide really stresses standards and rules, especially using an Australian context.
That's a key takeaway right there. Proper professional duct cleaning isn't the Wild West. It operates under specific rules for safety and, making sure the job's actually effective. The main one mentioned is the ASNZS 3666 series.
ASNCS 3666? Right. What's that cover? Sounds technical.
It is a bit, yeah. It's specifically focused on controlling microbial growth, think mold and bacteria in air handling systems. It's got different parts covering how systems should be designed and installed, how they need to be operated and maintained,
Huh?
performance standards, and key for us, the proper methods for cleaning and restoring them.
So it connects the building's design right through to the cleaning process. Interesting. And beyond those system standards, there are safety laws too.
Oh, absolutely critical. The guide points to the Work Health and Safety Act, WHS Act 2011. These aren't suggestions. They're mandatory safety requirements.
And that means things like ensuring workers have the right training, the proper safety gear, and follow set procedures.
Yeah.
Protecting them from chemicals, tight spaces, electrical hazards.
Exactly right. And connecting that back, these safety rules aren't just for the workers. They protect you and your property too, making sure the job's done without incidents or damage.
Makes sense.
The guy also mentions building codes, like the National Construction Code. How a building is constructed, especially its ventilation, affect how it can and should be cleaned safely.
Gotcha. And there were a few other standards listed too. Things for ductwork itself, access platforms, general air conditioning, even fire protection.
Yeah, AS424 for ductwork, AS1657 for platforms and walkways if they're working at height, AS1668 for ventilation design, AS1851 for maintaining fire protection systems.
Wow.
What's really fascinating, I think, is how it all connects. A real pro doesn't just know cleaning steps. They understand the system design, how to access it safely, the building safety rules, even how their work might interact with things like fire dampers. It's a whole framework.
Okay, so how does someone actually learn all this and, prove they're competent?
Good question. That's where training and certification come in. The guide talks about VET, vocational education and training here in Australia, often through TV. They offer nationally recognized courses.
So like actual trade qualifications.
Exactly. Things like a certificate third in air conditioning and refrigeration, or maybe electrotechnology electrician. These give them that core understanding of the HVAC systems they're working on. It's not just ducts, it's the whole system.
And there's an industry body mentioned, ARH.
Yeah, the Australian Institute of Refrigeration, Air Conditioning and Heating. They represent the pros in the field and offer all sorts of training face-to-face online covering HVAC basics, sustainability, refrigeration, not just cleaning.
Okay. And then there are international certifications on top of that.
Right, and this is where you, as a customer, can really start to see a difference. Look for certifications from groups like NADCA, that's the National Air Duct Cleaners Association. Their ASCS certification, Air Systems Cleaning Specialist, is recognized worldwide. It specifically tests if they know how to clean ducts safely and effectively.
ASCS, okay.
There's also the IICRC, which covers cleaning and restoration more broadly, and CVI for ventilation inspection.
It definitely sounds like it's more involved than just grabbing a powerful vacuum. There's some serious knowledge needed.
Which really brings up a key point for you, the listener. How do these certifications actually signal competence? Why should you actively look for them when you're choosing who to hire? They're kind of a benchmark.
A way to sort the wheat from the chaff, maybe. Okay, so these trained pros aren't using shop vacs. What kind of gear are we talking about? The guide gets pretty detailed here.
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting. The right equipment is absolutely non-negotiable for a proper job. The cornerstone is a powerful negative air machine.
Negative air emission. What exactly does that do? Sounds intense.
It is. It creates really strong suction inside the ducts while they're cleaning. Basically, they seal off parts of the system, hook this machine up, and it pulls air and all the dislodged debris towards it.
Ah, so it contains the mess.
Exactly. Prevents all that dust and gunk from blowing back into your house or building. And then, crucially, the machine filters that air before exhausting it.
And that filtering is important, right?
Hugely important. The guide emphasizes multi-stage filtration, specifically mentioning HEPA filters. A true HEPA filter captures 99.97% of particles down to zero point 0.3 microns. That's incredibly small. It means the air coming out of the machine should be really clean.
The guide also mentions specs like static pressure and CFM. Why do those numbers matter?
Great question. Static pressure, measured in inches of water column, is basically the suction power. The guide says you need 75 inches or more for effective cleaning. Think of it as the pulling strength. Can it actually pull debris from way down the duct?
Okay.
And CFM, cubic feet per minute, is the volume of air it moves. You need high CFM, like 2,000 to 5,000 or even more for big commercial jobs, to actually move enough air to carry the contaminants out effectively. Asking about these specs is a pretty good way to gauge if a company has pro gear.
Right, tells you if they've invested in the right tools. So that covers sucking the stuff out. What about actually loosening stubborn dirt inside the ducts?
For that, they use things like contact cleaning machines or power brush systems. The contact cleaners often combine vacuum suction with rotating brushes right at the head to scrub the duct walls while sucking up the debris.
The guide mentioned multiple motors, HEPA filters again, even remote controls. Sounds heavy duty.
They are, often built tough. And power brush systems use these long, flexible cables with different brushes on the end that they feed deep into the ducts.
And different brushes for different situations?
Yes, absolutely. Choosing the right brush is key. The guide talks about different bristle types, soft ones for ducts lined with fiberglass, medium for general cleaning, and stiffer ones for really heavy buildup on metal ducts. They have variable speed controls too. It's quite specific.
It really shows the level of detail needed. It's not just about power, it's about the right application of the right tool.
And using those tools safely is just as critical. The guide is very clear. This work has hazards, so safety gear procedures are essential, not optional extras.
Like PPE, personal protective equipment.
Exactly. Respiratory protection is number one. Maybe an N95 for light dust, but often they need better filters like P100s, especially if there's mold or heavy contamination. Eye protection too, safety glasses with side shields minimum, maybe goggles.
And hands. I imagine ductwork can have sharp edges, plus chemicals sometimes.
Yep. Cut-resistant gloves for handling metal, chemical-resistant ones if they're using cleaning agents. And if they're working up high, proper fall protection harnesses, lanyards, anchor points is non-negotiable.
And beyond wearing the right gear, there are specific safety procedures.
Definitely. If they need to enter large ductwork, that requires confined space protocols. Electrical safety is huge lockout-tagout procedures to make sure the system power is off and stays off, using GFCIs, ground fault circuit interrupters, and if chemicals are involved, following the MSDS, the material safety data sheets.
It really comes back to protecting everyone, doesn't it? The workers, you, your property. It's a sign they take the job seriously.
So, okay, they're trained, they've got the right gear, they're working safely. What does the actual cleaning process look like? The guide lays out a pretty methodical approach.
It starts even before the cleaning, right? With some kind of check.
Yeah, pre-cleaning assessment. A good company will start with a visual inspection of accessible parts. Maybe use a camera to look inside, take photos or video to document the before condition.
Ah, proof.
Exactly. And they assess the contamination level to plan the job properly.
And sometimes they need to actually make holes to get access.
Correct. If there aren't enough existing access points, and the guide stresses doing this properly, strategically placed, and sealed correctly afterwards, not just duct tape. For permanent points, metal plates, screws, replacing insulation. You shouldn't be left with leaky holes.
Okay. Then they isolate the system, seal things off.
Yes, they'll cover your supply and return vents, maybe isolate zones, and then establish that negative pressure using their big machine. That negative pressure has to be maintained the whole time they're cleaning.
Why is that so important?
It ensures all the dust and debris being loosened is pulled towards the collection machine, not pushed further into your ducts, or worse, blown out into your living space. Containment is key.
Got it. And the cleaning sequence itself.
Usually they start cleaning the ducts closest to the main air handler unit and work their way outwards towards the vents. Often they'll do the supply ducts first, the ones blowing air out, then the return ducts that pull air back in, always keeping that negative pressure going.
What about the air handler itself? The main unit with the fan and coils. That must get dirty too.
Oh, absolutely. The cooling coils, the drain pan underneath, the fan blades and housing, they can get seriously caked with grime and microbial growth. The guide notes cleaning these properly often requires specialized techniques, sometimes even partial disassembly. It's a critical part of a thorough job.
Definitely sounds more involved than just vacuuming the vents. It's a whole system approach.
And beyond doing the cleaning itself, running a legitimate business in this field means handling the operational side professionally too.
You mean things like having the right licenses and insurance?
Exactly. Basic business registration, tax stuff, of course, but also potentially specific trade licenses or contractor licenses, depending on where you are and the value of the work. The guide mentions an example in New South Wales needing a license for jobs over a certain amount.
And insurance seems like it would have to be pretty comprehensive given the risks we talked about.
It really does. General liability is crucial, covers property damage or injury. Professional liability, sometimes called errors and omissions, covers mistakes in the service itself. If they have employees, workers' compensation is mandatory, plus insurance for their vehicles and all that expensive equipment.
I suppose having those certifications we discussed might help them with insurance or getting bigger jobs.
Yes, definitely. Maintaining certifications shows they're committed to standards, which insurers like. And for many commercial contracts, having certified technicians is actually a requirement.
Okay, pricing. It sounds like it could vary a lot depending on the job.
It really does. For a house, it's often based on how many vents you have, the size of your system, how easy it is to access everything, and how dirty it actually is, maybe extra charges for things like coil cleaning or applying sanitizers.
And commercial is even more complex.
Yeah, much more tailored. Based on square footage, the complexity of the duct layout, the type of contamination, whether they have to work after hours. It's usually a custom quote.
So companies might price per event or per square foot or offer maintenance contracts.
All of those models exist, yeah. Maintenance contracts can be good for predictable income for them and regular service for the client. But the bottom line is all these business requirements, the licenses, the robust insurance, the certifications, they're ultimately there to protect you, the customer. They show the company is legitimate and accountable.
We've mostly talked about standard heating and cooling ducts. Do these pros handle other sort of related cleaning jobs?
Often, yes, using techniques suited for those specific tasks. A really common one the source mentions is dryer vent cleaning.
Ah, the lint trap issue. That's a major fire hazard, isn't it?
Huge hazard. And cleaning dryer vents properly needs different tools than air ducts. Things like specific drill-powered cables with smaller 4-inch brushes, maybe more flexible brushes for tight bends.
Right.
They even use airflow meters to check the airflow after cleaning, the guide mentions, aiming for over 1,000 feet per minute. And sometimes they need special tools just to pull out bird or rodent nests.
So specialized tools for the lint monsters. What else?
Another area mentioned is commercial kitchen exhaust cleaning. That's all about removing grease buildup in restaurant hoods and ducts.
That sounds like a completely different level of dirty.
It really is. It requires heavy-duty degreasers, often steam cleaning or pressure washing systems. Yeah. The equipment and safety protocols are significantly different from standard air duct cleaning. A company needs specific capabilities for that.
So a good air duct cleaner might offer these, but it's a specialized add-on requiring different expertise and gear.
Right. And sometimes chemicals come into play, but It should be
Well,
targeted.
not just spraying randomly, I hope.
No, definitely not. The guide talks about using specific EPA-registered sanitizers if there's confirmed microbial contamination bacteria or mold. These have to be approved for use in HVAC systems, or they might use professional deodorizers or specific fungicides for mold remediation, but always following strict protocols.
So it's about using the right product for the right reason in the right way. Requires knowledge.
Absolutely, it's not a casual spray down.
Okay, so the job's done. How does a professional company actually prove they did what they promised? Quality control, documentation.
Yeah, this is super important for accountability. The guide highlights several things. Before and after photos or videos are almost essential.
Seeing is believing, right?
Totally. They should also provide that initial assessment form, a clear service agreement spelling out the work scope, and then a completion certificate. That certificate should detail what they did, maybe list any chemicals used, and offer recommendations.
And quality control procedures during and after.
Things like using standardized checklists to make sure steps aren't missed, communicating with you throughout the process, doing a final inspection, maybe even testing airflow to show improvement, and often a follow-up call or survey to check satisfaction.
Wow, that actually sounds like quite a bit of paperwork and process involved.
It might seem like a lot, but think about it from your perspective. That documentation gives you proof of service, accountability, and helps you verify they actually did a thorough job. It protects you.
That makes sense. So given all these requirements, the training, gear, safety, documentation, what are the real hurdles this industry faces? The guide mentioned some challenges.
Yeah, a big one is differentiating the professionals from well, the less professional. The guide calls it a low barrier to entry. Basically, almost anyone can buy some basic equipment and claim to be a duct cleaner.
Which means you get people offering super cheap services, but maybe doing a terrible job or even causing damage.
Exactly. They might lack the proper training, the right equipment, the insurance. It makes it tough for legitimate companies who've made those investments to compete just on price. They really have to sell their value based on credentials, insurance, and proving their process.
And just keeping up with all those regulations and standards must be an ongoing effort, too.
For sure. Standards like AS/NZS evolve. WHS rules change. Local codes update. Staying current takes work.
And finally, customer education. If people don't know what a good job looks like, it's easy to get fooled by a low price and flashy claims.
Right. And that's why conversations like this and why you being informed are so important. Knowing the right questions to ask, what certifications matter, what kind of equipment to expect that empowers you to choose wisely.
Looking even broader, the guide touches briefly on environmental aspects, too.
Yeah, a couple of points. One is waste disposal. The gunk they remove might contain mold or other hazardous stuff that needs to be handled and disposed of according to regulations.
And the chemicals they might use.
Responsible companies try to prioritize products that are effective but also environmentally friendly where possible.
And we already mentioned the energy efficiency benefit.
Right. A clean system runs better, uses less energy. The guide suggests this energy saving is a positive environmental outcome too. So it connects indoor air quality with broader environmental responsibility.
Okay, so to quickly recap what the guide really emphasizes for professional success. You need serious technical know-how, you need to invest in the right high-quality equipment, get comprehensive training, stick rigidly to standards and safety rules, have solid quality control, understand all the regulations, keep your certifications up to date, and build trust with customers by showing you're reliable and genuinely expert.
Yeah, we started off just thinking about dust and dust, didn't we?
Yeah.
And we've ended up talking about complex standards, specialized tech, safety engineering, business licensing, insurance, quality control. It's quite an industry.
It really is much more involved and, frankly, more important than most people probably realize. It directly impacts air quality, health, and how efficiently our buildings run.
Which brings us to, I think, a really crucial question for you listening. We've talked about all the technical knowledge needed, the very specific equipment, the safety protocols, the documentation, and that challenge of unqualified operators out there. So how can you, as the property owner, cut through all that and make sure you're hiring someone genuinely professional? What practical steps should you take based on everything we've discussed to avoid falling for that low barrier to entry problem and actually get the quality service you're paying for?
Definitely something to chew on next time you're looking at those air events. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.